peeps, welcome back to another episode of 3 for Thursday. I am Gladianne, your host. I am a brand and business photographer. So today's episode of 3 for Thursday is going to dive into 3 things I think are must-haves for product photography. Now mind you, that doesn't mean you use them on every session. It just means that when you need them, you really need them, I find. And so it's just really good to just have them in the studio somewhere, have them nearby, have them somewhere. And they're not necessarily expensive things to have laying around the house or the studio or wherever you shoot your product photography, but they are things that I feel can completely change the game. And I can give you a few examples if time allows. I'm trying to keep these videos not like crazy long. All right, so let's just dive in. Okay guys, the first thing I believe is a must-have to have around whenever you are shooting some product photography would be these whiteboards. For a couple obvious and maybe not so obvious reasons. So I will say I prefer these ones over the flimsy kind. But let's get into the reasons why these are a must-have. Okay, so obvious reasons would be bouncing light. Sometimes you just need a little fill. You need a little fill in your life to like brighten things up. And other times you need them because you just need a backup surface to use as a background. You know, maybe you just need a backup surface to have. Or maybe you need a backup surface for like, you know, putting things on things, whatever. So those are some more obvious reasons. Just having like a backup for things like that, having that extra bounce just in case you need a little extra fill light into your scene. And sometimes you need them because you need to like fix reflections. So what do I mean by that? We have like very reflective surfaces we are photographing, right? Like sometimes it's glass or like, you know, a porcelain thing or whatever, and when we're photographing it, guess what we see in that reflection? We see our freaking, you know, this situation. We see us photographing it. And it's okay. Certain surfaces I think are really forgiving, or maybe it's too small, or there's a lot of texture and pattern happening on the surface, so you can't really tell unless you're super looking for it, and even then it's kind of distorted enough that it's not a big deal. And yes, you can edit things, but I'm not someone, I mean, often with product photography you are dealing with high volume, and so, I mean, I'm not gonna go in and edit myself out of every freaking surface. So I'd rather shoot it right. So like I said, certain surfaces are quite forgiving, so it's not a problem. Other surfaces you need to hide yourself. Maybe put your camera on a tripod and use a remote shutter or timer. That sometimes is a thing, because if you do have to edit yourself out, it's a quicker edit, something you can do in Lightroom versus Photoshop. Or it's just something black and it's not very, you can't quite tell what it is. Whereas like with faces and arms, you can kind of see what's going on. However, sometimes you just need to hide yourself a little bit, and this works really well. This is also freaking amazing when you're working with mirrors. So let's say you have this cute little like jewelry setup and you have a mirror, because it makes a lot of sense to have a mirror on the setup, or maybe you're doing makeup and there's a mirror and the mirror is facing like somewhere in the front 180, right? And so that means you're going to get like light reflections, you're going to get back whatever's behind you reflections, or over there reflections, or you know, you're going to get stuff in the mirror. It's a mirror. And if it's anywhere on that front 180, you're going to see what's happening in that mirror. And so I mean, if you're in a studio with a lot of white space and that's what you're working with, then it's likely not a problem. However, if you're working in your home or you're working in a very messy studio, I just touched a plant, then it's like you're probably gonna see all sorts of plants and things in your mirror. So it takes no effort at all to kind of just put this bad boy wherever that mirror is kind of, you know, pointing, and then whenever you shoot the photo, you're just gonna get this beautiful mirror full of just white. And it's gonna look really good. So that is why these are, I think, necessary to have sitting around, because you never know when you're gonna need them. I do prefer these, like I said, to the flimsy kind. The flimsy kind you can get a bunch in a pack, so they are cheaper and they will get the job done if you absolutely need to, but I prefer these for a few reasons. One, these for some reason are more white, like more pure white than the flimsy kind. I find the ones that, at least the ones I've picked up, have always been more of a cream white. And they look white until you look at it next to something else that's brighter white. So these are definitely a brighter, maybe almost a cooler white, which I think is good. I also like these because if you are, you know, MacGyvering your session, right, and you're shooting over here and you're trying to block the mirror over here, you could do it just fine because they're going to hold themselves up versus the flimsy kind. So you could just sort of like be over here shooting and looking for that reflection and then find it and then hold it there. And same thing goes for bouncing light and all that jazz. So I went on a bit of a tangent there, but I wanted to really show you the versatility of having some of these whiteboards around. And yes, since they are the foam ones, they do get damaged pretty quickly because indentations, if you have something heavy or you just grab it really rough-like, are going to ruin it. But they are fairly cheap, so it's really not that big of a deal. Just make sure you make it part of your routine. Maybe if you shoot a lot with them, maybe every month or something, go pick up more. Or maybe you can get it like on a subscription. I know that that's like a thing you could do for a lot of things these days. The second item and thing or whatever I think you need in your studio would be adhesives of all different kinds. So painter's tape even. Look, that's right here. I have adhesives everywhere. Painter's tape, you never know when you need to just hang something up somewhere on the wall or on a surface behind you or whatever, and at least you know the painter's tape's not going to do any damage, and it's going to be a quick way to just get something somewhere. Regular tape is great for maybe you're photographing makeup and stuff, anything that's in a tube that rolls. You could just take a little bit of tape, roll it up, and put it behind oil bottles. I have to do this all the time when I photograph essential oil bottles. You need to just place them exactly where you want this, you know, for flat lays, right? You don't want the tubes of lipstick and stuff rolling all over the place. You want it to sit exactly where you want it. So there's so many uses for just regular tape, as I'm sure we know. Bigger tape for other reasons. And then this stuff, actually I prefer museum putty, but this stuff comes in handy as well. Same kind of idea, taking a little chunk of this, and it's going to come in handy when the tape does not. So I really would look into getting you some museum putty, or this is just, what do they call this, tack? Mounting putty, whatever. So get different kinds of putty options as well. I just did a shoot where we were photographing like those things you plug into a wall or plug into a car or something, and so they have like a point or whatever at the bottom, and they're not going to stand up on their own. So photographing them was a challenge, except we used a big old chunk of this putty stuff, and it's definitely, I mean, you're not going to be able to tape that thing in place. It is what it is. So we used a big chunk of this stuff to keep this thing that, you know, shouldn't be standing upright to stand upright. So there's a lot of uses for stuff like tape, obviously, but definitely get different kinds. Like I said, it's nice to have the painter's tape laying around. I have 2 different kinds of this. It's nice to have this. I do prefer the museum and putties that are white because, I mean, the blue is kind of extreme. You know, masking tape and regular Scotch tape. So yes, adhesives, so many freaking uses. I'm not going to dive into it, but I really wanted to highlight the putty being something that is a make or break sometimes for a session. I mean, I wouldn't have been able to shoot that session without it. Anyways, you get the idea. Adhesives, make or break it, man. Okay, and the third and final thing that I think is something you probably don't need every session, likely very rarely you need it, but when you need it, oh man, it's so helpful, is a ruler. Now, I will preface this and say it's not specific that you need an actual ruler. It could be anything with a straight edge. It could be anything like a book or something if you really want, but I find there's a lot of other uses for an actual ruler, so why not just have a ruler? I just like this very simple one. It doesn't have any issues. It's just from Staples. I didn't want one with like anything curvy. I just wanted a plain ruler, and this is metal as well, so it just magnetically sticks. I mean, it doesn't, but it sticks to my magnet thing, and so I don't lose it, which is great. Anyways, tangent. Why do we want one of these? So many uses, but my main use is likely not what you think. So my main use for this in product photos and stock is whenever I am shooting a scene where I have a ton of things that are going to be like shot straight on and in a row. And often we kind of just eyeball that with our hands and line it all up and this and that, but I swear to you, it's never actually straight. So in comes the ruler. So let's say you have a bunch of tubes of things here and you line them all up best you can, and then all you do is take this ruler and just sort of push them forward a little bit and they all come together super duper straight. And then what you could do, since it's an actual ruler, you take like the edge of your whiteboard or whatever surface you have them on or something, and then you kind of just measure out the last one and how far, you know, the distance between that, the middle one, and then the end, just to see if you went diagonal with your straight pushy doodad. I hope that made sense. Yeah, so a ruler, it's not something I use on every session. It's very rare that I use it, but when I use it, man, is it useful. Okay guys, I hope that this video was super helpful for you. Let me know if it was, and let me know if you have another idea for a video for me, because I'm always looking for great inspiration. You guys have it all. I know you do. So give us a thumbs up if you want to see more like this, and I will see you in the next video. Bye! Just kidding. I'm getting a phone call.